Do you found the skeleton? How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm on a different set because I don't know, I'm doing things differently today. You know, I gotta change it up sometimes. And yeah, I know I didn't do the 3D transform for the document, but I figured you guys want to be able to read just straight left to right if you're gonna read something like this. So you know what, we're making compromises here, but it's okay because we are here for Giants of North America Part 3, as always, with Vishanti, who is the person who is basically doing all the research for this. I'm doing, basically this is me like, hey Vishanti, feel free to, like, you know, give me free content. Thank you.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, but that's okay. This is not technically a drinking game.
Yeah, this is one of the ways that I contribute to his channel. So, you know, if he has videos, then he can monetize the videos. So yeah. If I'm not able to donate financially, I can donate my time. It's
appreciated. And while I will say, Inkboy asks, is this a drinking game? So we're not actually playing a drinking game, but I do have a drink. And I am making, or I made a gin and tonic, but rather than using lime juice, I'm using the orange juice from the orange tree out back, because those oranges are extremely not sweet. But that's exactly what I do want for a gin and tonic citrus accent. So
yeah.
I also don't know how I would replicate this anywhere else because no one sells oranges like that. Basically just have to grow them.
Like the original Florida oranges, they were very not sweet like that. Those like were the original strain.
Okay,
they're
well
really hard to find.
Maybe I have heirloom oranges.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'll call them artisanal heirloom oranges. I don't know what's artisanal about them, but whatever, man. I don't think that's a regulated word. It's like all natural. I have all natural artisanal heirloom oranges here. Very fancy.
I guess since I did like kind of force you to make this title in Romanian, that I should say good morning in Romanian so that it's appropriate. Bună dimineața, everybody.
I don't actually speak any Romanian. I can read a little bit of it though, but that's basically just because, like, if you can read more than one Romance language, chances are you can kind of muddle through most of the other ones.
Oh yeah, and I mean, since you're pretty familiar with Latin, you would not have very many problems.
Yeah. I mean, exactly the nuances of which like tense and aspect combination is going on in every sentence, some of that's going to be lost on me. I'm going to get the gist most of the time.
You'll get the gist of it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into some giants, because we got some stuff here about giants. So for those of you who might be joining for the first time, who aren't familiar with the series, there is a long-standing conspiracy theory in North America that the Native Americans who are, you know, around now, and their ancestors who were around when European colonization began, were not responsible for some of the major construction efforts throughout the Americas, especially North America, where some of the most significant construction was in the form of earthen mounds, where basically they were like pyramids and big shapes and burial mounds and whatnot that were in some cases quite impressive, still are in many cases, made out of primarily earth, but supported with things like stones and wooden beams and things like that, and they can often contain burial chambers and whatnot. And basically, the people who were there when the Europeans showed up in North America were not building mounds. That's mostly because mound building had ceased a few hundred years earlier, and also they just recently had an apocalyptic level plague sweep through right before people showed up on the east coast of North America. Basically, it was smallpox that spread from South America into North America and killed a ridiculous portion of the people.
Thanks, Europeans.
Yeah, in some cases it was
colonizers.
Like more than 90% of the people had died from plague just sweeping up through there before the Europeans ever even bothered setting foot in the area. Just because the plague spread from South America up through Mexico and into, you know, North America. Vandalia 1998 says, if anyone's interested, I'm sitting down with PZ Myers on my show in 4 hours. Be there if you need some brain healing after this. Yeah, that'll almost certainly be much smarter than anything we're going to do right now.
So Osiris, Nichio, put Forbinimbo Rumana. Okay.
Where was I? Oh, right. So, of course, the Europeans decided, well, it couldn't be that the ancestors of the people that we find here are the ones who are responsible for all these, you know, large-scale earthenwork structures. It had to have been someone else, someone more quote-unquote civilized, because basically when you're a, you know, 16th, 17th, 18th century European, civilized means like me.
Yeah.
That's all that means, really. So they basically just made up ideas about things like giants who made these giant earthworks, because how could normal-sized humans do big buildings, even though they knew about humans making big buildings? It's all very stupid. But basically, it never died, and it continues on today, and nowadays, it even latches onto things like Photoshop contests. So
Yes.
a few years back, there was a Photoshop contest to make pictures of scientists finding giants. And a number of these have now been taken as evidence that the Smithsonian is hiding evidence of giants, because we've got the photographs of the giants being excavated. But the thing is,
Dude, look,
you can just find the original pictures of those scientists, and they're not excavating giants.
listen, doing research beyond cursory, like, reposting is not something that these guys do.
No.
It's just not. There's a specific example I saw, actually, I think this very week. I was just checking in on old L.A. Marzulli, and he was posting, critically, of course, a supposed photo of a guy excavating a giant on Catalina Island out here, outside L.A., and he was like, look at how giant the skeleton is, da, da, da. And there are so many people that have shown that photo and gone, do you understand how perspective works? That things that are closer to the camera are bigger. Those things are small. These things are far away. Like,
hey, I'll tell you what, when I was 9 and I watched Power Rangers, the forced perspective monster growth, it worked on me every single time. So, you know.
Well, he thought that, you know, everything was on the same plane, and just didn't bother questioning it. Yeah, and then so when people crop that part of the photo out for an article or whatever, because that guy was a known shyster and grave robber, he was like, they're trying to hide the truth. And I'm like, oh, all right.
Okay, so this is a little off topic, but you know who the guy who does Mud Fossil University? I think his name is Roger. Yeah. So I hope that everyone here has heard about the world building and art project called Mystery Flesh Pit National Park.
Yes.
Roger legitimately thought that was a real thing and didn't figure it out until days later, when his comments were full of people telling him, hey man, this is just an art project.
Incredible.
He legit thought that there was a giant superorganism in the Permian Basin in Texas that there used to be a national park for.
Of course he did.
Why wouldn't he? All right.
Why wouldn't he?
So let's get back to this book, which what is the title of this book? The Giants Who Ruled America. That's the title. It's by Richard
subtitle
Dewhurst.
Is The Missing Skeletons in the Great Smithsonian Cover-Up.
Very ominous. Okay, so basically this book is this one guy, because he's tall, decided giants must be a thing, and so he's going to go hunting for the evidence, but he didn't find any evidence in reputable sources, so he self-admittedly went for the most sensational newspaper articles he could find.
Yep.
Which is just... I just love that. It's like you get to the methods section of the paper, and it's just like, I just made it up. And it's just like, you know what? Chef kiss. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, at least he just threw that right out there at the start.
Yeah, he's being honest about it. So you had me go to this page, which is 129 on my PDF.
Right. Real quick before we get into that, if anybody is just joining us for the first time, or if maybe you missed part 1, we need to kind of review why giant humans aren't physically possible.
Oh, that is a good point. Yeah. So one of the things about humans is, this is true for animals in general, right? Humans are adapted to be about the size that they are. And if you just scale them up significantly, it causes problems. This is one of the reasons why really big dog breeds have horrible hip problems. It's because their body shouldn't be that big. It can't really support itself that well. So it's like, why your Great Danes and Irish Wolfhounds and stuff tend to have like really bad problems with hip dysplasia. Dogs aren't supposed to be that big. But it can also happen with small animals. Like one of the dogs here is a Dachshund Chihuahua mix, and she has an enlarged heart because I don't think her heart got the memo that she's not big enough for a heart that size. So yeah, you have to watch out for like signs of congestive heart failure because her heart's enlarged. So the thing is, with humans, once you get up past about 7.5 feet or so, you start having some really severe problems with joints, spine, cardiovascular problems. So if you want to have a race of humans, which means like a population of true breeding gigantic humans, which in some cases, according to this book, are like 13 feet tall, they would either have to be bedridden their entire lives, which would be short anyway, or you would need to radically alter their limb and skeletal morphology, right? Like, we've said it before, but a good example of a giant done pretty well is the giant from the Game of Thrones TV show. And no, we're not going to get into how it ended and whatnot. But the biology presented by the giant Wun-Wun, or Wun-Wun? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. It's W-U-N.
Ask me, I watch it.
W-U-N, W-U-N. Okay. That's actually pretty good because he's got these big, stocky, columnar legs, and it looks like the kind of thing that could support that much weight. Of course, another problem is when you're that big and heavy, even a minor fall can be a disaster. So you're still going to be accident prone. There's a reason why gigantic animals like that tend not to be bipedal, at least not upright bipedal like humans are, right? Like you get like T-Rex and stuff, but like elephants can't fall more than about a foot without shattering bones. It's a really big problem. Whereas like an ant, you can drop it off of basically at any height, and as long as it doesn't like run out of oxygen or something because you took it too high, it's never going to die from impact because it's going to be slowed down too much. Its terminal velocity is too low, and its mass is so small that even when it hits relatively fast, it's just not going to transfer that much energy to the actual structures of its body. Same thing with mice. Mice are basically immune to fall damage. So, what? They are.
No, it's just
they don't have to roll 1d6 per 10 feet.
No.
Which, by the way, is a really stupid system. 1d6 damage per 10 feet is bonkers.
Yeah, I feel like that scale's not good, but
it's easy for gameplay though.
Well, yeah, Truth Nerds has a really good little comment there. Square cube law: heat production is proportional to body volume.
Also true, yeah.
Cube length. Heat loss is proportional to body surface.
Yes. So
those are things you have to consider.
Well, that is something that is actually, it's something that large animals have to worry about. But usually, what they do is they just end up slowing down their overall metabolism, so they produce less heat. That's actually possibly one of the reasons why some dinosaurs could be just gigantic. It's because, well, if you just kind of lumber along and you're constantly digesting plants and you have a relatively slow metabolism, you can still keep a pretty good amount of internal body heat to keep that digestion going. And you're not spending all that much of it on actual cellular processes. So
yeah,
it might work out.
Probably a reason that elephants live in warm climates.
Yeah. All right.
Just saying.
So I think that's a pretty good overview as to why anatomically conservative humans can't really get to like 13 feet tall. You can't just scale humans isometrically. It's not going to work. So this is numerous mounds and Indian relics to be found along the Cheat River, about Horseshoe Bend in Tucker County.
It's also supposed to say by Hugh Maxwell, not Boo Hugh Maxwell. But
I like to think that that's his name.
Boo Hugh.
Yes, his name was Boo Hugh Maxwell because his parents were gigantic trolls, and they just wanted him to get teased mercilessly.
Cringe. So a lot of the book that we're skipping is not because it's providing definitive evidence of a cover-up and archaeological proof. It's not. The reason we're skipping over very large chunks of this book is because it's just quoting a bunch of sensationalized articles, the vast majority of which provide absolutely no measurements whatsoever. It's just a farmer found these bones and they're a giant.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no
and it's just
details,
lather, rinse, repeat.
no provenance, no evidence that these finds are even real, no real description. So we're not going to go through all of that because there's what, like 260 pages of this book. We're not going to make you guys suffer through that. I'm not going to suffer through that.
I'm not going to suffer through that. I mean, I own this book and I'm still not going to suffer through that. Like, I got better things to do with my time.
I'm going to own this book after I mint this PDF as an NFT. Then I'll own it.
Copyright work.
Then I can sell it to anyone, right? I can make my own copies and I can print them.
Right.
You guys don't know what we're talking about. It's a thing. Some NFT bros spent millions of dollars to buy an art book that they thought gave them the rights to Dune, the novel.
Well, it was the Jodorowsky version,
right.
Like his storyboards of what his version of Dune was going to be like, which, surprise, it's
spoiler.
Still copyright.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
Nope.
Okay, so where are we?
So this particular article I found when I was just kind of scrolling through looking for notable passages, and there's a little segment where it talks about, a storehouse of Indian relics, and then a little bit below that, there's a big bold header that says 2 acres of rectangular stones.
Mm-hmm.
You want to scroll down just slightly. Yeah. Okay. So
I'm gonna scroll up
this
a little bit.
Discusses a person named Captain James Parsons discovering some stuff along the Cheat River. And you actually get some visual aids, which is nice, and some little eagle hits.
I do like those. I don't know why they have to have been carved by giants.
And see, here's the thing. You can't really tell what the author is asserting is made by giants and what wasn't. Like, he'll, with equal aplomb, display native artifacts and claim, oh, these are made by the local population, and never differentiate between it, whether it was the Native Americans or this mythological race of giants.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think eagle head carvings are beyond the ability of ancient Native Americans. I mean, they could carve things. We know that.
Mm-hmm. So what really got me about this particular, I guess, section that he's quoting from, the author is quoting from, is that a lot of the news articles are sensationalized, or they're just not super well reported. But this actually comes from a segment of historical writing. It's like the history of West Virginia, like Tucker County or something like that. And there's a whole chapter on like James Parsons and who he was and, where he went exploring, and actually will save you a lot of time. Just let you know that Captain James Parsons was a guy around, the 1760s, 70s, and he may or may not have been captured by Native Americans and may or may not have been transported like a third of the way across the country. But when he tried to make his way back home, he got super lost. And he kept thinking that he was navigating certain rivers and realizing way too late that it A, wasn't the river he thought, or B, wasn't going in the direction of the place that he wanted to go. So he spent quite a while not being back home. And he stumbles across a river and finds some bones. And that's kind of why I think this person decided to like from him. But
this guy should have brought a compass.
Yeah, right. But the thing is, Hugh Maxwell, who is being, quoted in this passage, does not believe in giants. And I feel like that part is missed.
Yeah, actually, I like this part here. With traditions of giants. Sorry. This is a great quote. Traditions of giants should be accepted with the same amount of caution, with about the same caution as we accept the measurements of Goliath, who was said to be about 11 feet tall. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what most people don't really take seriously? The idea that there was an actual 11-foot tall Philistine. Mm-hmm. There's this thing called exaggeration that humans do. I don't know if you heard of it. There is no special.
The fish I caught was absolutely that big.
Yeah, right. There's no special reason to dispute the truth of Captain James Parsons' statement concerning the bones. He was a man well known in his day and was reliable. He was frequently spoken of in frontier histories. I mean, that's great, but again, there's this thing called exaggeration. And the thing is, it doesn't even have to be dishonest, right? Your memory plays tricks on you. Every time you bring up a memory, you essentially rewrite that memory. So if one of the things that you remember about finding a bone was, my gosh, this is a pretty big bone. Well, okay, 30 years later, it might be a gigantic bone, because that was what stuck in your memory, is how big it is. And so every time you recall it, it gets a little bit bigger. Just a little bit. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I do agree. We should accept it at the same confidence as Goliath's measurements, which is to say, pretty low.
And here's the thing. They're not disputing that he found bones. The dispute is, how big were they?
Well, I mean, there's bones all over the place. That's not at all extraordinary.
And I don't think it's a stretch to say that Maxwell is saying, well, there's no reason to doubt that he found bones. Like, of course, he was a naturalist. You know, he was out in the wilderness all the time. Of course he finds bones, like whatever. But he does just previously to that go, you know, oh, the lower jawbone fitted over the outside of his face. It's like, well, yeah, because that's how curve shapes work.
Yeah, guys, the bottom bowl in a stack of bowls isn't the biggest bowl. Nope. But that's the claim that's repeatedly made here, is like, oh, the jawbone could fit around the outside of someone else's jawbone. It's like, yes, because curve. Yep. That's all that is. Like, if you've ever stacked glasses or bowls or plates, you know that the same size bowl and plate, one can fit into the other. The human jawbone is a parabolic curve. Therefore, you can stack them together. And it doesn't say anything about which one's bigger.
If we were going to make a drinking game out of this, we would absolutely put the square on there. The jawbone fit over the face of a grown adult.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure my own jawbone could fit over my face.
I'm a very, like, petite person, and I believe I could also say the same.
Wait, are you evidence of a race of North American dwarfs?
I didn't say I was short. I said petite.
I'm just going to pretend that you are short, and that you are, in fact, evidence of a race of North American dwarfs or pixies or something. I don't know.
You know what? Being that I'm about, like, maybe 5'6"-ish, I would be a dwarf compared to, 9-foot giants. So
that's true. Or 13-foot giants, or 11-foot giants.
That's right.
Of course, we do have Cheshire Vic in the chat here, who I think is 2'4" or something. I don't know. I forget.
Oh dear, yeah. Here we go.
That might be inaccurate, but I don't remember.
Seems legit.
Okay.
So I went and continued reading, I guess, some of the history of the Tucker County, West Virginia thing that, Maxwell's writing here. And he's discussing the history of the region and saying, hey, we know for sure that, Indians lived here. But we also know that whoever built the mounds is not the same group. And we don't know what happened to them. We don't know if there was a war or a plague. It's just guesswork. So,
yeah.
But I did find one of the best quotes of all time, and I may end up cribbing this for my channel.
Okay.
Maxwell says...
Is this on a page? Should I go to it?
It's on his... Well, it's from the book, which I didn't send you a link to, but I did post the text of it.
Okay. Yeah, just go ahead and read it.
Maxwell says, quote, of all specimens of human weakness, your theory, unsupported by evidence, deserves most to be pitied. End quote.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's using the colloquial form of theory, by the way, guys. So yeah, if you've just got some guess and you have literally nothing to support it, then not really much reason for people to take it seriously. Now, granted, if they decide to reject it, they do have to have some reason beyond just, well, it doesn't seem well supported. You could go with, like, well, it doesn't seem well supported, and other explanations seem more likely, like that you just didn't find the thing, or that there's nothing to explain, or that ordinary things we already know about explain it. But just putting that out there, because technically rejecting a claim that doesn't have evidence does require you to do something more than just say you have no evidence.
Right.
Take that, Dawkins.
He does go on to say skeletons in the mounds have led some persons to conclude that the mounds are built for tombs. That's reasonable to assume. He says, but some mounds are only the huge graves of kings. Like, okay, yeah, so maybe not every single person was buried in a mound. Sometimes it was only important people. Okay, that's also plausible. And he says, but very many of the bones and relics that are found in mounds and hastily attributed to the mound builders are only the old carcasses of Indians and Indian wigwams. It's a known fact the Indians often buried their dead in those mounds. Like, why not? They're already there. And he says, although many of the relics taken from the mounds are counterfeit, yet some are surely genuine. From these we learn that the mound builders were not much larger or much smaller than average Indians. The accounts of skeletons of giants 30 feet long dug out of the ground are not to be believed.
30 feet. My goodness.
Right. It is doubtful if a race of people much larger than the able-bodied Englishmen of today has ever been in existence. I wonder why J.J. Dewhurst didn't put that section in this book.
Odd, isn't it? Given that that's a major source of his. Also, for
Weird.
€2, Inkboy says, reminder to shill your thumbs up under your stream. Yes, guys, do hit the thumbs up. I am seeing about 22 people, approximately. 23 people, approximately, who have not hit like on this video. And it really does help the channel out a lot. So please do go ahead if you can. All right, so 30 feet long. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and
that's like beached whale level of size.
Good God. So the article being quoted by Richard Dewhurst in this, Giants of North America book, it's from a newspaper, the Raleigh Herald. Okay, which is fine. But this article is not the primary work for which Maxwell is known. That would be, probably his history of freaking Tucker County, which if you read it, he's like, nah, giants are definitely not a thing, and you should not listen to people who say that they're fighting.
But why not use him as a source? The great thing is, the great thing for this is, like, you're already a guy who's just decided that, like, oh yeah, I'm going to go with all sorts of crazy sources, but this is probably my only scholarly source. Doesn't even agree with you. That's like classic young Earth creationism tactics. Because it's like pseudoscientists of all stripes love to cite some scholarly work that they can quote mine.
Yeah. And obviously, this is why I kind of spend a little extra time going and trying to dig up a little bit of, secondary and tertiary information on these people because, surprise, Maxwell doesn't agree that there are giants, but yet one of his news articles is only quoted in brief.
And by the way, this is Boo Hugh Maxwell. To remind everyone.
Boo Hugh
Maxwell.
I will post the link to this transcription of part of his book in the Discord chat for you, so if you want to read it later.
Thank
I
you.
will also post it in the side chat for the audience, so if they want to read it on their own, they may certainly do so. Maxwell seems to have a fairly good head on his shoulders, and to me, that's really impressive considering all of the crap people talk about archaeology. Even in the 60s.
Pseudo-archaeology is a whole wild thing, and this series has been my first real foray into it on the channel, but I am thinking about getting into some, like, weird Mormon pseudo-archaeology, because there's a whole lot of that, and it's weird.
It overlaps quite a lot with the stuff in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Maxwell, again, rationally goes on to say, but one thing is certain, Tucker County was once the home of Indians. The Indians of America seem to have belonged to one general race, the same as the people of Europe belonged to one. How they got to America is unknown, and it's only wasting time to offer theories upon the subject. There is about as much reason for believing that the old world was peopled from the new as that the new was colonized from the old. Each continent may have had a people indigenous to itself. The Eskimo of Alaska and Siberians are known to cross and recross the Bering Strait, and America may have received its inhabitants from Asia in that manner. And I'm like, dude, what was the Bering Land Bridge theory pioneered? Because this guy was on it.
Yep, he got that one. That is the primary way that that North and South America received people. Now, there are some extra migrations from Oceania across, like, the Pacific.
Yeah.
That did happen primarily in southern, central, and, like, northern South America. But that is relatively minor in terms of, like, total population of pre-European contact North and South America. It is almost entirely from the Bering Land Bridge. Almost.
Yep. And I was actually very impressed that he was writing about this in, the early to mid 1960s. Like, to me, that's actually really, really impressive.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's similar to me. Like, at one point I read some Herodotus, and he was like speculating as to why the Nile floods. It was like, maybe it's snowfall from, mountains farther south. I was like, yep, that's exactly it.
Turns out, yeah.
You got it. Way to go,
yeah.
Herodotus, writing thousands of years ago.
It's almost like, seeing patterns in nature leads you to some correct conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He talks about, how we know the islands are sinking and there would be, evidence of people living there that we may not be able to find because it's underwater. He also says that there's a telegraph plateau that stretched from Newfoundland to Ireland and has the appearance of an isthmus that may have once connected Europe and America, and it's now underwater, but it's close enough to the surface that icebergs lodge on it. And he's like, yeah, some people may have taken the idea of Atlantis from this, but it's useless to speculate. It says it can be proven with equal conclusiveness that the Indians are mixed with Welsh, Japanese, Norwegians, Jews, and Carthaginians. It's unknown where they came from or who they were before they came. We take them as we find them.
By the way, Smitty has a question, which was it migration or a visit? Is there a population of Polynesians in America now? So it was a migration, and there are, in fact, people in, like I said, like southern Central America and parts of the west coast of northern South America, who do in large part descend from basically Polynesians who made it all the way across the Pacific.
Yeah.
I don't believe
They're
that
down
they...
around Chile and Peru, mostly.
Yeah. I don't believe that they have significant amounts of, like, linguistic evidence. Like, I don't think their languages are, like, Polynesian. I think but I'm not actually sure. And then, yes, Glenn Collins says Hawaiians. Well, Hawaii is not geographically part of the Americas.
Yeah.
So, it really, if it weren't for, like, economic imperialism, it wouldn't be part of the United States, because it's
honestly
ridiculously far away.
There is still quite a bit of I don't want to say debate, but there's still quite a lot of negative discourse around the fact that America essentially annexed Hawaii from the British on a technicality, and I can't blame people for being a little salty about that.
And also annexed it from, the Hawaiians.
The people that were living there, right?
Who had a whole kingdom set up.
Yep.
Yeah,
but actually, we could talk about, the Tongas and the Polynesians some other time.
Hey, I'm sure there's plenty of weird pseudo-archaeology going on there, too. Vandalia 1998 for $5 says, so is them thinking giants were in North America the same as ancients thinking elephant skulls were cyclops? Probably not exactly. The idea with the cyclops skull with the elephants is that there were actual physical remains that were verifiable, and people have a long history of trying to identify fossils and things like that as, like, a way to make sense of them. That's why famously, the distal end of a dinosaur femur was identified as a fossilized giant human scrotum. Which it wasn't. Just gonna put that out there. That is not the case. It was, in fact, the distal end of a dinosaur femur, and not like a 12-inch wide scrotum.
Yikes.
But so
well, you did mention Easter Island. Do you know who Thor Heyerdahl is?
That does not ring a bell.
What about Kon-Tiki? Do you know? Does that ring a bell?
It rings a bell, but I don't think I could tell you anything beyond that.
Thor, he, a Norwegian anthropologist and explorer and stuff, he more or less led the first, like, archaeological trip to Easter Island in the mid-50s. He essentially built, like, his own raft called the Kon-Tiki, boat, vessel, whatever, and sailed it himself over from, like, South America to Easter Island, and was trying to show, like, yeah, people could actually migrate to here from South America. And at the time, that was considered verboten. They're like, no, they came from Polynesia. And he was like, it's possible.
That does sound familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So he wasn't saying, like, this is definitive proof. He's just saying, listen, I'm just a guy. I don't have, benefit of hundreds of years of, indigenous maritime experience, but I did this on a pretty simple, like, raft with a sail on it. And
yeah, it's definitely physically possible.
Yeah.
And actually, we know that ancient Polynesians had better than just, lashed together logs with a sail. They had pretty advanced, like, double-hulled sailing vessels that were basically, actually, honestly, like, the movie Moana isn't that inaccurate in terms of, like, sailing technology for ancient Polynesian people. Like, her boat that she had there it's not far off.
Yeah.
Like, they did their research on that movie in general. Plus, it has some good music.
So yeah, if you get bored later, you should go read up about the Kon-Tiki. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it really is.
And he actually demonstrated how the island used to be covered in trees and all this stuff because he took pollen samples and was showing like, yeah, well, deforestation's a hell of a thing.
Yeah, because Easter Island used to be forested heavily, and now there's no trees, and my goodness, is there some problems with erosion there.
Oh, buddy.
Also, Mr. Lizard said mammoths, not elephants. Ah, but mammoths are elephants, my friend. Here's why. It's because mammoths are more closely related to the Asian elephant than they are to the African elephant, which puts them inside the family Elephantidae, which is where you find the elephants. So,
yeah,
there you go. Mammoths.
I love that Silver Harlow says that they were assigned Kon-Tiki as a reading in high school.
Really? That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a big deal when it came out.
I was assigned Brave New World, and then I didn't read it. And then,
really?
Yeah, I didn't read it afterwards, but I didn't read it. But then on the test, which was multiple choice, I just picked like the most interesting answers, and I passed. Not with a great grade, but I passed. Because they were like, what did everyone do after they got bad news or something? And I'm just like, I don't know, but C says have an orgy, so I'm just gonna check that one. I was like, yes, that is what they did. Because it's Brave New World, and it's like that.
You know, there are so many better ways to market certain books, and I feel like that should be one of them.
It's the book you give to high schoolers that has orgies in it.
Do you cope with dystopia by having an orgy? Well, these people did.
And now we're demonetized. So feel free to super chat, because that's the only way I'm making money on this one.
Oh my god. Well, I tell this story a lot, but my music history professor in college was a very eccentric person, and his well-known greeting when people would pass him either on the street or in the hallway would, you'd say, "Hello, Dr. Howard, how are you today?" And he'd go, "Oh, one day closer to death."
True.
And that is true, but it's like, okay. And I vividly recall the date that we were learning about like Tchaikovsky and, certain types of Russian ballet and composers. And he started out the lecture with, if you were having emotional travail over your gay lover, would you write a symphony? Because Tchaikovsky did.
I mean, I don't.
Class was like, what?
I can see it as a reasonable response if you're the kind of person to write symphonies.
Yeah, and it just... Again, Tchaikovsky's sexuality still is kind of a minefield topic in certain parts of the world, so, college students learning this for the first time were rightfully a bit surprised. So...
Fair enough.
Anyway.
All right, so what is our next section that we want to get to in the book?
Okay, there is a Associated Press quote. For me, it's on page 183, so if you just Control F for Poplar Bluff.
Poplar Bluff, Missouri? Probably the next one, though. Is it evidence of an ancient house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Giant tower.
Let's read this. Poplar Bluff. The skeleton of a woman found with a pottery water bottle gives testimony to the archaeological treasure only inches beneath the soil on the Butler County farm. Jim Price, a sophomore student of archaeology at the University of Missouri, made the find September 5th. By the way, this is 1964. The skeleton is that of a woman 35 to 40 years old and dates back to AD 800 or AD 1000. I appreciate using the AD before the year, which is how it should be. The burial pottery is made of clay. I mean, yeah, it's pottery. Okay.
Yeah, it's pottery.
it's like, okay. It's the timber structure was made of wood. Yes, it's right. Timber.
Skip down to the next header section.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
100 skeletons dug up. Blah, blah, blah.
100 skeletons dug up, averaged 5 feet 6 inches, tallest 7 feet 8 inches. Okay. Kohler has also dug up an estimated 100 skeletons in shallow graves scattered over his fields. He has been interested chiefly in noting the height of the remains, which he said averaged 5 feet 6 inches, which is tall for it's slightly tall for ancient remains, but it's one skeleton was 7 feet 8 inches. Yeah, that's just a normal population of humans.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally if the average height is like my height. That's not something to write home about.
Yeah, it's a little taller than I would expect for like AD 800, right? Because, you know, that's actually fairly tall for that time, but like there have always been tall populations. This was just a group of people who were somewhat taller than most groups around the same time. But even 7 feet 8 inches is like, okay, so you found an NBA player basically mixed in. The funny thing is, we have NBA players around today. They do this thing called be in the NBA, and they're not part of a race of giants. Like, yes, tall people exist. There is height variation in Homo sapiens. Surprise! But what it doesn't do
bell
is
curve.
Right. People exist all along the bell curve. But what it doesn't prove is that there was a coherent race of giants, like a subpopulation of gigantic people.
Giants producing giants, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Always good.
That was for you, Ink Boy, because you said that your Ghostbusters joke didn't land, so I had to throw one out for you.
Oh, okay. I didn't even notice that there was one, which is why it didn't land.
There is another little section I think was really cool that actually had photos.
Ooh, I like that.
So yeah, Control F, Chickasalba.
Is it CHICAS?
ICKASAWBA. Chickasalba.
Spell again, I'm sorry.
Chicken to China, the Chinese.
You're gonna have to spell it again because I missed it. CHICKA.
And then SAW, SAWBA.
Was there a dash in there?
No. Did it not transcribe?
I don't know. It might. Oh, wait.
Oh,
I got
dear. It. Okay, well then let me.
No, I think is this
another...
it? A giant race, the Indian amount of Chickasalba human skeletons, 8 and okay, I got it.
Yeah, you got it. Why is my cat screaming?
I don't know, but I can't hear
my
it.
Child. Goodness.
Eris says, once I heard NBA stood for Nephilim Basketball League. Oh, that would be great. Don't ever tell Nephilim Free that. He'll have to start protesting.
Don't. Oh God! Don't tell Ellie Marzulli and Brian Forster that.
Okay, I was researching some Nephilim stuff because I thought maybe that might be fun to go into, and I found a video, and this guy's reading through like the Table of Nations or something, right? Or no, it was something adjacent to that, right? Like it's talking about all these ethnic groups, and he's like, "Oh, gee, there's a lot of things that end in "eem," huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's almost like that's the plural suffix for masculine nouns in Hebrew. Weird." Sorry, it was just like, come on, man.
Oh no!
Like that's like first day of Hebrew school.
I think that wherever Dr. Josh is, he just took psychic damage.
He's not even watching. He's still just like, oh.
He's not even watching, and he took psychic damage.
Goodness. Yes, there are a lot of words that end in "eem" in the Hebrew text of the Bible.
Oh, so good Lord. So this comes from a section of the book where the author is quoting legitimate archaeological finds, providing, photos, maps, and sketches. And the pottery actually rules. Some of the mound builders, their structures rule. They have really good designs on stuff. Scroll down until you find some more photos because they're really cool looking.
Ooh.
And while they do look super boss, it doesn't prove giants. And it's not even evidence for giants because guess what? People can carve designs in pottery.
Yeah. Actually,
you don't have to be a certain size to do it either.
A few months ago, I was at a museum in northern Arizona that had a lot of both ancient and modern examples of native pottery. And people are still making pottery and carvings like this, as they have been doing for millennia.
Oh, look at that. That little effigy, it's a little pipe smoking dude.
Go back up to Great Mortuary, effigy of a man smoking a pipe made in Missouri, flint clay, courtesy of Herb Rowe. mean, it's really cool, but it's
not proof of giants.
Right. It's just like, I don't know where you're going with this, buddy.
And again, this is the pseudo-archaeology thing. They try to make this connection that anyone who could do things that look even remotely skilled either must have had help, either by aliens or Nephilim, whatever, or it was a lost race of giants that's being concealed by the Smithsonian.
Except for Europeans. They can figure that stuff out.
Yeah, except for Europeans, obviously. So you can see like a little whelk shell. That looks pretty sweet. There's a copper ear spool that, if you... It looked kind of like a lollipop because of the way they had it displayed.
Yeah, it's mounted on these little...
Yeah, essentially it's like modern people doing ear gauges.
Yeah.
Earlobe gauging. Which is pretty sweet.
So you can... I don't know if my mouse does show up on screen. So like you loop the actual earlobe flesh through here.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So the next, I mean, at least 30 pages or so of the book are literally just, look at this cultural stuff. And then it's like you're supposed to infer from that giants, advanced giants.
Yeah. Well,
because
also
none of those things that they cite and none of the photos provided speak to giants whatsoever.
Well, also we're getting into this idea that like, oh, the Native Americans couldn't work metal, which is just not true. I mean, look, one of the reasons the Spanish were so interested was because of all the gold and silver that, was on display by like native royalty.
Yeah. It was so abundant in Peru. People were just like treating it like it was nothing.
Yeah. So
the Spanish saw it and were like, "Oh my god!"
But it is
Dios mío!
It is the case, though, that there was not an extensive history of things like iron or steel working. And what that seemed to turn into was just like, oh, Native Americans never really figured out metal. Because they didn't make swords, apparently, is basically what it comes down to. But it's like, no, that's never actually been true. Native Americans worked copper, silver, gold. Granted, these are all relatively soft metals that are easy to work with, but they were still doing it. So it's not surprising that we find copper mines.
In fact,
how
if
do you get
Control
copper?
F4, copper is the only metal found. That will pull up the next really neat section.
Or will it? Copper
it is the only metal found.
I'm not seeing it at all. Did I spell copper wrong? No.
I can't see. That is very tiny on my screen.
There it is.
There you go.
I don't know why that didn't pull up. Oh, you know what it is? It's because the stupid PDF reader doesn't like to actually read ahead or behind very far. It takes forever for it to actually load in the text from other parts of the page. I noticed that when I was doing some roleplay game prep with a roleplay book that I bought as a PDF instead of the physical copy. And yeah, it's really slow. So,
yeah.
Okay, copper is the only metal found. The only metal encountered during the excavations was copper, which appeared to be a great favorite with the mound builders. I mean, it's relatively easy to smelt, and it's easy to work with because it's soft.
Speaking of smelting, this is only tangentially related, but sometimes people occasionally will bring up like, oh, the Jewish kosher laws are only there to protect people from trichinosis because they, couldn't cook food. And I'm like, no, dude. Humans were smelting metal by this point. There was not a problem getting fire hot enough.
Yeah, I mean, we're into the Iron Age by the time, like, most of the biblical texts are being composed.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
that was one of those cases where I'm like, nah, the argument can be made from other angles, but not that one.
My personal idea is that it was probably a way to distinguish themselves from geopolitical rivals in the area who were big on consuming pork.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even the text says that. It talks about how, like, do these things and, it's going to be obvious that you're different. Right. So it even acknowledges that. Yeah,
it's not so much that it's dangerous or even so much that it's inherently immoral to eat pork. The idea is that you're doing this to distinguish yourselves. You're not these other people. You're this group. This is us.
That's also
that's them.
Acknowledged in some of the passages about, like, Sabbath keeping. It's like, this is a sign. That you guys are different than the people around you, so.
You can make the argument that it's good to have a day off, but, like, also, it's arbitrary which one you pick. Like, is it...
Some people do Friday.
Yeah, like, if your day off ends up being Wednesday, does that is there like an intrinsic moral difference? No, but the idea behind most of these laws is some of them are, you know, supposed to be like moral precepts, like, you know, what you are and aren't supposed to do with like foreign people who come and work. Like, don't make your foreign visitors work on the Sabbath. Like, you know, they get to rest too.
Yeah, Nebulon is exactly, Nebulon's reading my mind. That's Religion for Breakfast's angle. Yeah, I was not directly referencing his video on like the pork taboo.
Yeah. It turns out, well, and the other thing is you can also watch the prevalence of pork decline in the area that's now Israel throughout archaeological history, because these groups that were doing things like, you know, making inscriptions in Paleo Hebrew and whatnot, you still find pig bones in their middens, but it's slowly declining, basically like concentrically from Jerusalem, which is sort of the hegemonic center of the temple cult that eventually, thousands of years later, gives rise to Second Temple Judaism, which is the progenitor of both Christianity and Islam, or not, and Judaism, and like, I guess secondarily Islam through like a weird syncretistic hybridization sort of deal. But anyway,
so if this article, I did many things to try to find the full article, but it is very poorly cited, this book, and I was not able to find the full thing in the time that I had before this stream, because your girl forgot that we were doing this and decided last night would have been a great time to just not use the entire whole evening I had to research. So good job.
I feel like I did remind you.
You did. Okay. And I told you, like, thanks for reminding me, because I will have time to do this. And I was very excited. And, well,
and you
know.
Didn't. Stream ruined. Everyone blame Vishanti.
Instead, I chose to indulge in THC and went to bed.
Now we're uber demonetized.
Good game.
I do like this. I want to scroll up so people can see this. I really do like this. I don't even know what this is. Engraved stone palette.
Yeah.
It's very neat. I'm going to actually zoom in on it so people can see a clearer version of it.
So this is kind of one of the places I was actually glad to find in this book was stuff about Moundville. And that's from my home state of Alabama. And it's named Moundville for a very obvious reason.
It's full of ancient mounds.
It's full of ancient mounds. It's one of the, you know, more commonly named mound sites. And there are all kinds of artifacts and pottery and art and stuff found specifically in Moundville. Huge museum, and, you know, there's all sorts of literature on it. And this disc in particular is just one of my favorite artifacts to look at, just because it's like a big giant snake.
Also,
a hand with an eyeball.
It reminds me of talismans against the evil eye that you find in places like the Eastern Mediterranean.
Yeah. It does. It looks very much like the Hamsa or the Hand of Fatima.
Mm-hmm.
So, wait a minute, that proves that there was, you know, intermingling of cultures from the Middle East and North America.
No, it's not. Not even a little bit. Nope.
Ugh. Yeah.
So I want to read one of these as an example of, like, what isn't evidence of a claim. So, remarkable square pot discovered. The most remarkable object met with the party was a square pot, ornamented by brilliant red and pearl gray circles. Each circle was fingered by a pearl gray ring. This is perhaps the finest vessel ever to be taken from Moundville. Several other color pots were encountered, several of which were very remarkable. In 1904 through 5, Dr. Clarence Moore, connected with the Philadelphia Academy of Science, found only 3 color pots, and these were rather rude. Okay. That's great.
Well, the things that I was able to dig up in the time allotted without calling in my contacts that actually are at Alabama.
Allotted. There was a whole lot of time allotted that you did.
I know. I am taking full responsibility for that.
Okay.
However, I was able to find a photo of people exhuming a skeleton, and I just sent you a screenshot of it in Discord. This is definitely not Photoshop. This is literally in the archives of the University of Alabama Library. It's in their photograph collection. It's from 1936, and this was taken at Moundville. So this is what it looks like when people do actual freaking archaeology and, you know, document their finds.
Right.
And look, that giant skeleton. Oh,
I am going to be finding a good way to bring this up on screen for everybody. I think I have it figured out.
If you want, I believe I can link you to the website where this is on, and it may be easier for you. So
I think I can just do one of these and then scroll. No, I guess I just have to. Well, you guys. Oh no, you can't. All right, give me a second.
Okay.
So you can see this guy here, and he is hanging out with a skeleton here.
Look at that. Two skeletons. Yeah, there is two skeletons. Look up by the head. There's another like rib cage and a skull.
Oh yeah, there are. Okay.
Yeah, check it out.
But the thing is, this is a fairly normal sized skeleton next to a fairly normal sized man, but the skeleton is close and not far away. See, some things are big and some things are just close. So this is honestly, this is like in my my Andrew Snelling thing where he's just like, I don't see a fin on this fossil of Tiktaalik, which by the way he consistently called Tiddalak, which was that's a whole thing. And it's like, yeah, it's because it's underneath the fossil on the picture you're showing. Like this is like 8-month-old baby kind of thing.
Yeah.
That you can't see it or that it looks funny to you doesn't mean that that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this has been presented as evidence of giant skeleton, and it's just like, okay, take a look at the length of, say, you know, the tibia here, compared to this guy's tibia, and, you know, note the fact that he's farther from the camera than the tibia is, and then you're like, oh, it's actually not very unusual at all. It's probably about the same height as this guy, maybe a little bit taller. But also, no scale bar is included. There's not like a picture of like, you know, a ruler or anything.
Not in this photo.
So, yeah. It's
there's
really unimpressive evidence of giants.
Yeah, and this this collection of photos, you can access them yourself for free. I posted the link in the side chat, so if you want to go to the
You posted it, but you also labeled it as sauce, which I'm confused by.
Yeah, because that's what it is. It's the sauce.
Okay. Does it go good on like barbecue chicken?
Oh, you aren't as old as I am on the internet.
That might
sauce is what source is. Sauce source.
That still doesn't answer my question about chicken though, because I'm hungry.
Oh well, hi hungry. I'm dad. Also, if you eat chicken, is that cannibalism?
No, if you ate a cow, is that cannibalism? You're both mammals.
Well, birds are dinosaurs, so
yeah, and cows are mammals, and so are humans. So if look,
I'm not descended from a cow.
Well, I'm not descended from a chicken. Problem solved.
So yeah, you could do a lot more reading about Moundville and some of the archaeological stuff they've dug up there on Alabama's website. And I am using integrity sourcing that from Alabama, even though I am not a fan of their athletic teams.
By the way, Lingway says
I am legally required to disclose that.
Lingway points out that Tiddalak sounds like a breast milk replacement. Yeah, a little bit. Hey, you gotta feed those babies.
Tiktaalik. That's what Hovind calls it, right? Tiktaalik?
That's closer, all right? Like, here's my standard for getting scientific names right. Pronounce all of the consonants with about the right value, and make sure you make a vowel sound that's approximately right for each vowel, and we're good. Put the accent wherever you want. But Tiddalak is, you cannot get that from Tiktaalik. You just can't. There's another creationist who said Carnotosaurus. No, it's Carnotaurus. There's no Carnotosaurus. That's not a thing. Carnotaurus, the meat bull.
Well, there are some times where I'll be totally fine with people just butchering a scientific name, because I get it. A lot of those are really kind of challenging, but
I mean, if you're just
there are other times where it's a word that's not outside the common lexicon, and people will just put the emphasis on the wrong syllable, and that gives me like migraines.
Let me be clear. I'm speaking about people who are purporting to have something to say about the field.
Yeah.
Not like some rando who wandered into a museum and doesn't know how like Deinonychus is pronounced. That's fine. Whatever, man. Like I'm pretty sure that if I went to your job, I wouldn't know how to like talk about everything that you do. But if you're gonna be someone who's like, I'm gonna educate you guys about dinosaurs and the Bible.
Oh dear.
Man, you gotta get it you gotta at least try to get it approximately right. But we're super off topic there.
We are super off topic, but it might be time for a quick break, because when we come back, we can talk about the red-haired giants.
Oh, the red-haired giants, which, by the way, ties into the thumbnail. So we're going to take a quick drink. Well, okay, I'm going to take a quick drink. We're going to take a quick break, which will involve me getting a new drink. See, it all ties together. And we'll be back in, I don't know, like a couple minutes. Do hit like if you haven't already. Subscribe. Also, I'm going to point out that my Patreon drive is still going. I'm hoping to get 107 more in monthly, in like average monthly income, right? So there's like annual subscriptions and whatever, and that all adds to it. And if you do an annual subscription, I think there's a 10 or 15 or something. Yeah, it's 10% discount. So, you know, if you want to do the $1 per month subscription, but you want to do it for a year, it's $10. You're on the subscriber, or you're on the Patreon list for the whole year. You get access to my Discord server. At $5, your name gets in the credits. At 10, I'll start letting you download some of my blend files if you like some of my 3D art. I'm going to be uploading my little like 3D perpetually blooming flower animation that loops that I use as a background sometimes.
Bloomin' onion.
Basically, yeah. It also has color changing and like a sort of 80s like aesthetic for like the ground plane that moves past you. It's pretty cool. I like it. I don't know. I'll upload it so you can like make your own changes, make your own version. That's at the $10. There's a $20 tier where, in addition to all those things, I'll actually try to say your name out loud, and I'll screw it up, and then you can yell at me, and then I'll screw it up again, and then maybe like 4 months, and I'll get it right finally. I'm not saying that's ever actually happened. It totally has happened. And then if you're feeling absurdly generous, there are higher tiers where you get even more. So, yeah, please do consider that, because, yeah, I'm trying to keep this channel with my relatively consistent, at least 2 uploads, and almost always 3 uploads. I'm averaging more than 4 hours of content a week, and I'd like to keep it there. So, and if you can't afford it, please don't even bother, because I don't want money from anyone who can't afford it. So here we go. We're going to go on our intermission, and we will be back in just a few minutes after that wonderful commercial, which I'm sure everyone hated. And we're back. I had to unmute myself because if I said "and we're back" but muted, like no one would hear it. First, I want to say, Inkboy, welcome to the channel membership at the Tetrapod level. Please enjoy your wonderful little Tetrapod sticker, as well as access to all of the channel emojis, which include, and are currently limited to, the Dapper Dino, the Fancy Tetrapod, the Top Hat, Kent, a Monocle, a Thumbs Up Goblin, Godzilla, Mothra, Trigglypuff, a King Dora, and Citation Needed, the newest. Which, by the way, Vishanti helped with, because she was the one who both suggested and provided the NASA font, which was slightly modified for use.
See, I'm just giving Dapper all kinds of good things lately.
Absolutely. And there is one thing I need to plug before we continue on, which is the Seabad Show. Benthoven will be posting a link to the Seabad Show, which of course is a channel that I am a member of, as well as Benthoven. Technically his brother's a member there, but he hasn't been around for a while, but also Cheshire Vic, where we do movie commentaries, and our newest episode is premiering about 23 hours from now. So it's going to be noon Pacific tomorrow, 3 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, where we will be premiering our coverage of White Zombie, which, because it's a public domain movie, we can actually show it to you. We do have several episodes covering copyrighted movies where we have a clock that you can sync the movie to, and then you'll get us as a commentary track on top of it. But this is one where, yep, we can just right there. And yeah, Trigglypuff's in there. I just got a lol Trigglypuff right there. So, you know, if we have a debate or anything and my debate opponent is super triggered, you can just put in some Trigglypuffs if you want. Yeah. There it is. It's a Jigglypuff who's vaping, he's got a scraggly beard, and very angry. So.
Trigglypuff. Trigger Jigglypuff.
I think it's actually yeah, it is. If you type in Trigglypuff, yeah, it actually pops up like : Triggly Puff : and it'll actually go in there. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Cheshire Vic made that one for me. The rest were, so Cheshire Vic made the Trigglypuff. I made the rest of them except Citation Needed, which was a collaboration between myself and Vishanti. So yeah, if you want to join the channel, it also gets you access to those things, and also the Discord channel and whatnot. So Inkboy, send me something on Twitter or something, or email or something, and I will make sure to get you a link to join the Discord server, where I'm often. Anyway, I have been told to skip to the Legend of Siteka, I think, maybe? I'm not really sure how to pronounce this.
I'm not fluent in Paiute, so sure.
Even if I were fluent in Paiute, I would not trust this transliteration.
Okay, so let me summarize. If you want to scroll down to the little photo, just so people can look at something nice while I summarize.
Is this a nice photo, or is this one the nice photo?
The 3 giant heads. They're definitely giant.
All right, everyone, I need you to crane your necks 90 degrees to the left. Because that's what our author here made us all do.
Yeah, really.
Couldn't... Look, man, it's even in Paint. You can rotate an object or an image in Paint, man. Come on. This is... Jeez. When was this book published?
God, 2013?
Well, anything that starts with 20, it's inexcusable to not rotate your pictures to orient them correctly.
Yeah, it's like shooting vertical video and
seriously
uploading it to a portrait, a landscape-oriented website. It's just, stop.
Dr. Osiris, you have to be a channel member if you want to send the Trigglypuff. Sorry, man.
Okay, so there's a legend, there's a reason it's a legend and not history, about supposedly red-haired cannibal giants.
Cannibal giants?
Oh yeah, they're not just giants, and they're not just red-haired giants. They are cannibal red-haired giants.
That's a lot of specificity on what I'm going to go ahead and guess is the basis of on the basis of no evidence at all.
Well, guano's involved.
As in bat poop?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So, Lovelock Cave. Let's talk about Lovelock Cave. It first caught the attention of archaeologists in 1924 after miners had been harvesting the several-foot-thick layer of bat guano.
By the way, guys, bat guano is used as a fuel source. You can burn it. It's sort of like cow patties, which are often used as a cooking source because they have a relatively good temperature, but they burn for a very long time. Similarly, you can use bat guano, so it's actually economically significant.
Guano bowls. Collect the whole set.
Gross. Also, it's actually really hazardous because it's like it gives off some pretty noxious fumes.
Did that reference go past you?
Yes, it did.
Darn it. Okay. Well, if anyone catches it in the side chat, you will earn internet points.
I will give you at least 3 internet points.
At least 3. So the miners kept digging through feet of bat guano until they found some relics and skeletons, and they were just like, listen, this is a little bit past what we signed up for. So yeah, let me just call like the University of California and have them come in and take this over because we're just here for the bat guano. We're not here to like excavate an archaeological site.
Which is the appropriate thing to do, by the way.
Yes, that is the appropriate thing to do. You should leave them in situ and call professionals.
Same thing with fossils, by the way.
Yeah. So the fossils, or I should say artifacts, sorry. They do predate the natives, which is fine. However, to claim that they're red-haired giants who are also cannibals is...
That's quite a stretch.
That is quite a stretch.
So one thing that we've mentioned before, and I want to repeat it, is that many methods of preserving organic tissue causes alterations to the color of the tissue. And one common thing that you see with a lot of different kinds of preserved humans is that, and actually not just humans, but many things, is that the hair will turn reddish. So for instance, a lot of times you see woolly mammoths as portrayed with red hair, and that's because woolly mammoth mummies have red hair, but there's no reason to think that that's how they looked in life. They actually probably had blackish hair based on like the actual like melanin content that we can see. But like the various ways that preservation goes about tends to bleach out a lot of that and leaves a lot of the red pigmentation, which is common in melanin anyway. Like there's eumelanin and there's rufous melanin, and animals tend to make both of them. But that rufous color can stay as a result of a lot of different kinds of preservation when the black tends to leach away. So yeah. Finding a red-haired mummy doesn't mean you found the mummy of a red-haired person.
Yeah, and it comes out as like a very bright auburn or copper color, and that's, partially due to the chemicals in the soil and things like that. So when you find, bog mummies, very often they'll have like reddish tinted hair, and it's it's a very similar process to when people use like henna to dye their hair. It comes out like in a very similar shade of, reddish brown. I've
never done that, but famously, the Prophet Muhammad dyed his beard with henna.
Did he really?
That's according to the various hadiths.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean,
Muhammad.
I'm somewhat skeptical of the authenticity of the hadiths, to put it mildly, but according to the relatively trusted Islamic sources, yes. Which is why it's actually still popular in parts of the Middle East today.
Okay, so
anyway,
long story short, there's this myth about, those are, giant red-haired cannibals. And if you Google Teka and start letting Google fill in the rest for you, it's going to come up like cannibal red-haired giants. And that is why I sent Dapper a actual archaeologist discussing them. And if you want to play that clip, there is going to be a nice little debunk. And he cites, the actual first-hand account of some Paiute Indians.
Andrew, please don't sue me for this.
He won't. He won't. I will message him and let him know that we used a clip.
Oh, are you two buddies?
He's pretty readily available via his blog. So
that's nice. By the way,
because he's been taking a lot of heat from the LA Marzulli jokers. So
post this link to this video in chat if you want to. You can go ahead and check out the video. If you like Andrew White's content, you can feel free... Oh, I did it wrong. Here we go. There it is. If you like his content, you can feel free to go ahead and just subscribe to him. He's only got 571 subscribers, so feel free to give him a hand. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to hit play.
trade hits. Why not just throw Bigfoot in there too? Why the heck not? So the red-haired cannibal giant claim is one of the pillars of this kind of basket of claims for widespread.
Oh, you're not seeing it, but it's playing,
accounts
Vishanti.
of white, red-haired giants. They're supposedly talked about in the legends of Native American peoples. When you go in and look at them one by one, every single one that I've looked at has basically fallen apart. And this one is no exception. When you try to track down where this idea comes from, that Paiute legends contain this account of red-haired cannibalistic giants, it leads you to one source. And interesting enough, that source does not say what they say it says. These claims all seem to draw...
I was just saying, I am shocked that a source would not say what it says that the pseudo-archaeologists say it does. That's just absolutely beyond the pale. I can't believe that anyone would ever do that with a source.
I can't believe.
Yeah, the nerve. Okay, let's play a little bit more. Sorry, production is weird and crazy, and you're not hearing Vishanti. I don't. Sorry.
Oh, I can hear it.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind then.
Draw
Yeah,
on
it sounds fine.
the writings of a woman named Sarah Winnemucca Hopkins. In 1883, Sarah Winnemucca published a book called Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims. The book has history in it. It's also a memoir. It's regarded as the first autobiography written by a Native American woman. If we go straight to the source, if we go to Sarah Winnemucca's book, Life Among the Paiutes, the relevant part is found at the very end of chapter 4, last paragraph. You can read the whole thing, which is the kind of the genesis of this idea or this claim about these red-haired cannibal giants. Among the traditions of our people is one of a small tribe of barbarians who used to live along the Humboldt River. They used to waylay my people and kill and eat them. Cannibals. Check. Got it. They would dig large holes at night. They were afraid of these barbarous people. They would even eat their own dead. Cannibals. Got it. Yes, they would even come and dig up our dead after they were buried or tear them off and eat them. Cannibals. Definitely.
Got it.
Now and
Cannibals.
then they would come and make war on my people. They would fight and assassinate. They killed one another on the other side. The woman would carry off those who were killed. People say they were very brave. Let's see. Killed them in great numbers. Killing. Lots of killing. There's the boats. And the fire. My people would ask them if they would be like us and not eat people like coyotes or beasts. Cannibals. They talked the same language, but they would not give up. At last my people were tired and went to work and gathered wood and began to fill up the mouth of the cave. Then the poor fools began to pull the wood inside till the cave was full. At last my people set it on fire. At the same time they cried out to them, "Will you give up and be like men and not eat people like beasts? Stop being cannibals. Say quick and we will put out the fire." No answer came from them. My people said they thought the cave must be very deep or very far in the mountain. They had never seen the cave nor known what was in there until then, nor known it was there until then. They called out to them as loud as they could, "Will you give up? Say so or you will die." But no answer came. Then they all left the place. In 10 days, some went back to see if the fire had gone out. They went back to my third or fifth great-grandfather and told him they all must be dead. There was such a horrible smell. This tribe was called people eaters, cannibals. And after my people had killed them all, the people around us...
Okay, quick pro tip. You gotta tune the music lower there.
Yeah.
There, Andrew.
Yeah.
Sorry. But we'll keep going, just because, like...
But it's nice just to...
Yeah, it's... I don't mind the music that it's there. It just needs to be tuned a
It's
little
too
bit
loud.
lower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say do kara. It means conquer. It also means enemy. I do not know how we came by the name of Paiutes. It is not an Indian word. I think it is misinterpreted. Sometimes we are called pine nut eaters, for we are the only tribe that lives in the country where pine nuts grow. My people
like
say
pine
the tribe
nuts.
we exterminated had reddish hair. Check.
Reddish hair.
I have some other hair which has been handed down from father to son. I have a dress which has been in our family a great many years, trimmed with this reddish hair. I'm going to wear it sometime when I lecture.
Weird.
It's called the morning dress, and no one has such a dress but my family. So cannibal thing in there, red hair in there, claim that they were giants, nowhere to be found in there.
Weird.
Nothing about skin color either. It never says they were light-skinned. It just says they had red hair. In fact, since we're online, we can search this. We can search for the word giant, let's say. There is one reference to giants in chapter 2 under domestic and social moralities. Our children are very carefully taught to be good. Their parents tell them stories, traditions of old times, even of our first mother of the human race, and love stories. Stories of giants and fables. And when they ask if these last stories are true, they answer, "Oh, it is only coyote," which means that they are make-believe stories. The one time she mentions giants in this whole book is to say that giant stories are make-believe. She never mentions them in connection with the red-haired cannibalistic people. That's its own tale. There's no other mention of giants. There's only one mention in the whole book.
All right.
How about that?
Weird, huh?
Weird. Primary sources, man. They'll get you every time.
Also, yes, when he says dress made of human hair, creepy. I think it's more fringed with the hair, but yeah, it is still kind of weird and creepy.
Hey man, listen, if you completely obliterate your enemies, you've got to show it off.
So it's genocide hair shirt.
Yay. So while you were playing some of this, I did a fun little thing in Photoshop where I took the the figure 10.7 of the giant jaw they found in Lovelock Cave and compared it to normal sized teeth. Oh goodness.
Is it basically a normal sized jaw?
Oh goodness. Just if you would be so kind to put up the photo that I sent you.
Okay. Give me a second.
Buddy. Prepare to be absolutely just shocked.
Oh my goodness. All right, give me a second. I have to do some resizing here because of how I was trying to crop everything in one. Sorry guys, the vagaries of streaming here. All right, so we got the normal size jaw, which is the overlay here, which they said was, they put it back up here. I think you can see my mouse. Yeah, you can see my mouse.
I literally just did like a magic select and dragged it
right down here. So it's the quote-unquote giant jaw is like less than 1 full molar width bigger, which yeah, it's bigger. But like, yeah, that's one of those, like, yeah, it's just like, okay.
Again, stacking bowls.
Yeah, the thing is, like we've said, variation in the size of Homo sapiens is a well-known phenomenon. I pointed out in a video that I made, but hasn't been released yet, unless, of course, you're a patron or a channel member, just saying, that, you know, we have, like, some people groups in the Congo with an average height of under 4 feet, or sorry, not under 4 feet, under 5 feet for the males. And we have populations like the Dutch with an average height hovering around 6 feet for males. Like, yeah, humans vary in size. No one has ever disputed this.
I can't believe.
But you're trying to support the claim that there was an entire population of giants in North America, and this doesn't do that. Even the actual source doesn't do that. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these giant quote-unquote photos, they are extremely disingenuous because, yeah, if you look at the photo the way it is in the book, you're going to see a tiny little jaw or teeth impression next to a massive giant skull.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. This is a dental cast next to a jaw.
Right.
Not the same thing, guys.
But I literally, all I did was Control X that thing and just dragged it down. Didn't resize it, didn't do anything, just pulled it down so it overlaps. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's actually not that big.
Yeah, I mean, it is bigger than the dental cast, but also, do we have a reference for how big the dental cast is? Was this a small person? Was it a dental cast taken of Chesh, or was it a dental cast taken of, like, Andre the Giant? I don't know. Command Cyborg, who's been a member for 15 months at the tetrapod level, says, I enjoy some lemon soda with Bacardi, Raz, and actually, I got myself another gin and tonic, but this time I just used lime because I didn't want to go out and pick an orange, and it's not as good. Yeah. I gotta say, that really sour orange, it really does a thing that I don't understand, but I'm into it. And it's probably my second favorite gin and tonic option. My first favorite, though, is rosemary and prickly pear infused gin, which is absolutely amazing. If we want to take a second for bar time with Dapper, get yourself a nice big old handle of gin. It can be cheap gin, too. It does not need to be fancy.
I will, as a gin snob, I will emphatically suggest that you do get a good quality gin, but continue.
Well, here's the thing. You're going to get rid of some of the, like, nuance in a good quality gin and replace them with the nuances that I'm going to be adding here, which is actually why I suggest a relatively cheap gin, because basically you just want the juniper berry flavor in there. You don't want, like, you know, like Hendrix, however many herbs and
cucumber and yeah.
You want this to be a fairly neutral, relatively simple gin. And what you're going to do is you're going to take, for about a handle, I usually go with like 2 to 3 prickly pears. It's, you know, you're going to want to dial it into taste. Muddle them. Pour over about 10 fluid ounces, that's US, whatever, I don't know, convert it to mils, of gin over that. And then add in about like a sprig or so of fresh rosemary, or if all you have is dry, you can add in like a half a teaspoon or something, right? And then cover that and let it sit overnight at room temperature.
Ooh.
Then strain it. You're gonna want to double strain into another container, and then use a funnel. Just pour it back into the gin. Shake that gently, and there you go. You have rosemary, prickly pear infused gin. And
Delicious.
the reason I say, like I said, go with a relatively cheap gin is because, like, if you used Hendrick's or something like that, which has like 11 extra herbs or whatever, you're gonna lose a lot of that nuance that's in there. So
I mean, it's like cucumber and I think rose hip. It's not like super
right,
complicated.
but like I said, look, gin is basically just flavored vodka, and you're just adding new flavors. So don't overcomplicate it. Is basically what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because that's really all gin is. It's just flavored vodka. Which
I mean, kind of, but
I know that
right.
Russia isn't in vogue, but last time I went to a Russian Easter celebration, there was a whole lot of different kinds of flavored vodka. It's all over the place. So much flavored vodka.
We're starting to get into like freedom fries territory, and it's just so cringe.
Yeah, I saw a sign that I really liked on Twitter. It was like, hey, that 50-year-old grandma who's running a Russian-themed restaurant, she didn't invade Ukraine. It's okay.
Yeah, really.
You can go get some borscht or something. Like, it's fine.
Oh, shit.
And also, I know someone whose fiance is Russian, and she's been, like, banned from teaching English online. And it's like,
oh my god.
Really? Come on, guys.
That's so petty.
Yeah, it's...
Some of my customers are, seniors and retirees from Russia, and they've been over here for like 20 years. And they're just like average people. Oh my god, yeah. Stop being weird about it.
Also, did you see the Russian cosmonauts that just went up to the International Space Station are wearing yellow and blue?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they changed into that in Kazakhstan, and now they're in space. So what's Putin gonna do?
Wait, did they launch from Baikonur?
I think so.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're already in Kazakhstan, and now you're in space. Literally, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna shoot a missile at the International Space Station? I doubt it.
Well, I will say this, though. I'm a little bit pissed on Yuri Gagarin's behalf because there's like a committee that tried to strip him of some honor
come
or whatever.
on.
And I'm just like, get the F out of here, man. That is so unnecessary.
Current troubles with Russia are not troubles with every previous Russian regime, nor are they troubles with every current Russian.
Exactly.
That's not how we should be treating the world. We're going to switch back over to our text here.
Anyway.
Like, my goodness, guys. Not you guys. My audience isn't doing this.
Goodness.
Yeah, my audience is clearly not doing this, but, like, there's people out there and just like...
Nice called Russian cosmonauts.
Yeah, seriously, it was really cool.
That's an example of, like, good trolling and good solidarity.
Oh, yeah. Because the thing is, it's not a popular war in Russia. Most Russians are not pro this war in Ukraine. They're like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where science especially doesn't have borders.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you really need to be above a lot of these things because you got a job to do.
Tell that to the CEO of Roscosmos.
We have rockets to put up there, and
tell that to the CEO of Roscosmos, who was like, I might strand the Americans who are scheduled to come down on a Russian rocket.
Yeah, well, Roscosmos is a little bit of a different story.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to Giants. Yeah.
If you will Control F to the Florida bog mummies, it will play off what you were previously discussing about red hair and how
Florida
it tends to
I can just click
up your hair.
There we go. Am I too far down or too far up or anything?
It's towards the end.
Okay.
It's like in the last, section.
Oh, hey, look at that
bog mummies.
hair.
Hey!
This photo clearly shows the amazing preservation of the bog mummies' knotted red hair. Brain samples were also obtained. Well, right. Confirming the date of 7,500 BCE. I do find it... Okay, you know what? I was going to say I do find it interesting that we're kind of inconsistent with BC AD versus BC ECE. But then I realized he's quoting... Like, he's just directly quote... Oh, this is all over the place in terms of my outline. Sorry about that, guy.
That you might need to read.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what just happened there. That's weird.
Those darn red-haired bog mummies.
What is happening with my OBS. Okay, that was
Cosmos.
Seriously, that was bizarre. Sorry about that, guys. I have no idea what just happened. Anyway, I also realized that a lot of the times he's actually just straight up quoting from a newspaper that was using AD BC. So like, okay, yeah, I don't expect you to put in brackets BCE every single time. That's a bit much. But yeah,
this is
preservation of red hair. Except, was it red hair?
It's also in black and white. So
well,
thanks for that. It shows preservation of hair, which is cool, but it's hard to tell what color that is when you post it in black and white. So, this is one of the few passages in the book that is the author kind of using his own like narrative skills, and it's not just block quoting an article or some like historical account. It's actually like
original content.
One of the few passages that Dewhurst actually like wrote himself.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to take a drink of water.
Water. You gotta make sure, yeah.
Water. So he says, let's now turn our attention to the northeast coast of Florida in the case of the Florida bog maze. The original finds were made in 1982 at Titusville, Florida, when real estate developers, I don't care, began building a road over the 1/4 acre Wendover Pond in Brevard County, about 5 miles from Cape Canaveral, where they shoot rockets into space. The backhoe operator uncovered several skulls. The developers immediately called in local archaeologists to have a look at the ancient stained bones that were being uncovered, which is what you are supposed to do.
Again, yes. Oh, so you find anything of scientific or historical interest during an excavation for any reason, call an expert.
Mm-hmm. Also, note the fact that he's outright stating that the bones were stained because, again, they were found in a bog.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't think to connect that to the hair color.
Now, hold on. Help me out now. Can you stain hair to be a different color than it is naturally?
Yeah. I do it all the time.
Weird,
right?
Interesting that he wouldn't take that into account. That if bones could be stained,
there's no connection there. It's just they stain the bones, but the hair is definitely red.
Okay, the hair has like a force field around it that keeps it from being affected in terms of color.
Well, yeah, it's supernatural Nephilim hair.
Wait, is there even any indication that this is a giant skull?
Well, stay tuned.
Okay.
All right, so despite the fact that the state of Florida has a responsibility to test finds of this nature, once the state determined that no current murder was involved, they refused to pay for proper radiocarbon dating of the bones.
Why would
If not for the largesse and intellectual curiosity of the two dudes that found it, the age of what has been called, quote, one of the most significant archaeological sites ever excavated, and by whom? Who called it that?
This guy, the
may
author.
Never been discovered at all.
He called it that. He's quoting himself.
He ain't called it that, but he put it in quotes.
Yeah, well, he's quoting himself, you know.
Of course.
Like, remember that time I said, quote, there you go.
Yeah. So the two guys that found it paid for their own, like, carbon dating.
That's not cheap, guys. That's actually kind of impressive.
It's not. Well, of course they had money because they were the ones, paying to build a road. So
still, they didn't have to do that.
Also are not cheap. So, yeah. That's actually pretty nice of them. So I suppose I will actually name them since they did contribute.
Thanks, guys.
Jack Eckerd and Jim Swanson. Thanks, guys.
There you go.
Despite the fact that two anthropologists, Gerald T. Milanich of the University of Florida, Gainesville, and Glenn Duran of Florida State University. Ooh. Okay, so they actually sourced two different universities. That's good.
This is actually pretty good work so far. I'm impressed.
Yeah, they were both appraised of the spectacular findings. No monies were allocated to drain the bog pond, see what else was waiting to be discovered under several feet of water. In order to facilitate a proper excavation, the two developers changed their construction plans and even donated $60,000 worth of pumping equipment to see that the pond was properly drained.
Well, yeah. So far, this sounds like Eckerd and Swanson are being pretty stand-up land developers. This is basically the most that I could ever expect from someone who's doing, like, construction land development type projects. So yeah, hey guys, good job.
Yeah, not they so much like, hey, we're onto something. This is actually, important. So put off the road. Let's see if we can get this stuff, out there.
Yeah. So hey, good job.
They dug about, I think it's about 160 wells that they had to drain like a lot of water because Florida be swampy.
Yeah.
And it says all
really
told,
high water table.
Well, yeah. The bones of 168 individuals were recovered, ranging in age from infants to adults in excess of 60. That this was in an official cemetery there. That this was an official cemetery. There can be no doubt, as the heads of all the individuals were held down by ritual stakes, and the bodies were all laid on their left side with their heads pointing towards the west. The oldest skeletons were found to be in excess of 8,280 years old, and there was evidence of continual use of the burial site for more than 1,000 years. Like, suck on that, young Earth creationists. Older than 6.
Oh, okay, guys. If you want to go into young Earth creationism and carbon dating, because I like it sometimes, but other times not, I would suggest that you check out Joel Duff's channel, because he just recently released a video about creationist attempts to accommodate carbon dating as a real dating mechanism, because they want that for things like the Dead Sea Scroll and other biblical manuscripts and stuff. Because they like to point out how many biblical manuscripts we have. But then they're like, oh, well, yeah, but this 20,000-year-old skeleton, it's definitely not 20,000 years old. And so Nathaniel Jeanson made an attempt to make a conversion chart. So you can convert quote-unquote secular years to quote-unquote biblical years. And it doesn't go as well as he hoped. Let's just say that.
Well, I, for one, am shocked.
Yeah. So if any of my mods wants to go find that video from Dr. Joel Duff, the natural historian, I think it's his most recent video, feel free to link that in the chat.
Okay. So, I will skip down a slight bit. Even more incredible was the state of preservation of the skeletons due to being sealed in the acid-neutral peat. In over 90 of the skeletons, actual brain matter was preserved. This allowed the scientists an unprecedented opportunity to test the intact skulls with X-rays, CT scans, and MRIs. The average height of the inhabitants was, take a wild guess.
5'6"-ish?
5'2" and 5'8".
Was that male, female? Okay. Yeah.
There's your range. Woo! Giant, very, very big.
And that's in the book, right? You're reading from the text.
I am reading from the text. Dewhurst is writing this with absolutely no self-awareness whatsoever.
5'2", which is our low range, is short.
5'8".
It's not giant. Yeah. 5'8" is ever so slightly above, like, human total average worldwide. Like, barely. This is not a remarkable find in terms of giants. It's a remarkable find in terms of archaeology and actually, getting all these, this archaeological find with all these really well-preserved bodies. Very significant there. But, like, you're gonna have to do better than 5'8" for giants.
Yeah. Well. Okay.
Goodness, that's bad.
So, I know. DNA testing on the bodies was conducted by Joe Lawrence, and as was the case with the skeletons at Spirit Cave in Nevada, the genomes were found to contain haplogroup X, which is a distinct DNA marker only found in Caucasians generally of Northern European origin. And because Dewhurst doesn't tell you who the crap Joseph Lawrence is, I will tell you. He is a molecular anthropologist who retired from academia and was the assistant professor at, I believe, Central Washington University. And does actually have a master's and a PhD in anthropology.
So what is the explanation that we have for finding what is apparently European DNA in these several thousand-year-old mummies?
Well, surprisingly, Dewhurst does not go into that. He just moves on.
Oh.
Talks about water burials. And was like, well, sometimes people in the British Isles did that. It's like, okay, so.
Vickery points out giants is relative. Yeah, but I think we're talking, like, relative to general human size. In which case, like, yeah, these aren't giant. These are just normal-sized people.
So, the only real kind of development of the idea of, they found haplogroup X, which is only found in this, one thing. He actually blames NAGPRA laws, which are basically anti-grave robbing laws of, like, indigenous sites. because people be robbing grave sites like big time.
It's actually a big debate in
Dewhurst,
archaeology what the difference is between archaeology and grave robbing.
Yeah, and
it's a very,
Dewhurst
very
is
gray
a little
area.
bit, you can tell he's a little salty about this. The NAGPRA federal laws were passed in like 1990, and he says they are now enforced arbitrarily in defense of Native American tribes' sensibilities regarding extremely ancient skeletons.
How dare people try to ensure that the remains of natives be under the control of Native Americans, and that the sensibilities of the modern descendants of ancient peoples who you might be investigating be taken into account when you're investigating their structures. The very nerve.
The nerve. How very dare you. So Dewhurst says, well, one of the major reasons the discoveries at this site are not better known and can, like, you can't get more info on the haplogroup X stuff. It's all the fault of NAGPRA.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say that's impossible, but here's the other thing. You can talk to actual tribal like leadership and tribal councils and whatnot, right? And the answer is not always no. No testing is allowed. Sometimes it is, right? Especially in cases where tribes have a sort of mytho-history that they are the original inhabitants of an area when they're manifestly not. There have been cases with such tribes being somewhat hesitant to allow any kind of genetic testing on remains found in the area. And I'm not going to say that that's a good thing, but like, it's not every tribe.
Yeah, and you also can't force them to give up these remains. So.
Yeah. Has there been some hindrance of scientific and archaeological and historical progress as a result of the need to actually respect people? Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also the case with like medical ethics. I'm sure we could learn a whole lot of stuff by doing horrific, inhumane testing on a bunch of people who don't consent.
And
that doesn't mean we should. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we should do it. It doesn't mean it should be legal.
Right.
Also, CRISPR-Cas9 has a good point. He says, my only archaeology class, we were told to always think about how you'd feel about someone measuring your great-grandmother's pelvis.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's true. Now, for me, it's like, I mean, I'm okay with a measurement, but like if you're just gonna like, you know, toss it in a pile somewhere or something, that feels a little bit weird to me.
Yeah.
One of the rules of thumb that I was given is if anyone can remember the person who you're measuring or doing other archaeological things on, it's too early.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that if they can't, it's late enough, but that's like if this is the case, it's definitely not okay. Anyone in living memory, do not do archaeology on that person.
Yeah. It's just, it's way too easy to try to depersonalize remains and think about them in the abstract. It's like, no, these were people.
Yep.
Actual, like, people, you know. They're not just science experiments.
That's actually one of the things I try to keep in mind whenever it comes to things like archaeology or history and human remains. Is like, this was a person. This person had loved ones. They had a family. They had hopes and dreams. They had people who cared about them. They lived a life. They were the main character of their own story.
Yeah.
You can't ignore that fact. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to do archaeology and science and whatnot, but like, keep that in mind in terms of your treatment of human remains, and as well as your treatment of the communities who would claim those remains as their own. Even if it's not actually the case that those remains really are connected to them, it's still an emotional investment for those people, and that needs to be respected.
And even if I personally am not bothered by the idea of someone digging up my ancestors, there are people for whom that is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So try to respect that and not be a douche.
That's why Indiana Jones is possibly the least ethical archaeologist in history.
Yep. Hey, I'm just going to steal this statue. Oh no, why am I being hunted for it?
Well, he'll not only kill a statue, he will sometimes, steal a statue. He will sometimes kill the people who own the statue because they're the native inhabitants that still occupy the area he's doing his quote-unquote excavations in.
And he has the nerve to go, that should be in a museum.
Yeah, or maybe it should be returned to the people you stole it from there, Indy.
Weird.
Yeah, okay. But then if we did that, what would be left in the British Museum?
The shade. irony, Dewhurst says, about this slavish obedience to local American Indian sensibilities. How big of a jerk are you, guy?
My goodness. Imagine thinking in the 21st century that we have a slavish obedience to the sensibilities of Native Americans.
I know. I'm like,
my
wow,
goodness.
You're fun at parties.
Yeah. Ask some Native Americans about how slavish like modern society is to their sensibilities.
Good grief. He's like, well, the irony is that their own native lore speaks of the original inhabitants as being white-skinned, red-haired giants. And I'm like, well, no, actually, it does not. As we just saw in that clip from, Andrew White.
Yep.
Their lore speaks of cannibals, and it speaks of red hair. Does it tell you what color their skin was?
Yep, or that they were giants.
And I feel like that would be a really important detail to mention if not only they had red hair, but if they were somehow white and all of your people were brown, that would be important to mention.
Yeah, I would note that if there was a neighboring group of people with vastly different skin color, and I'd never, and this was like, pre-contact with the rest of the world, that would be a thing I would point out. It's sort of like when creationists are like, oh yeah, Behemoth's totally a sauropod. It's like, it doesn't even mention the long necks. Come on, man. That's the first thing you point out. No, I don't buy it. Is it impossible?
Yeah.
I guess it's not impossible, but like, you'd think that would be something that someone would mention, was the weird paleness.
Okay, I'm about to make you take some psychic damage here.
Uh-oh.
I am sorry in advance.
Okay, I'm going to put up my mind shield.
Okay.
Which means I'm just going to take a drink.
He mentioned haplogroup X, and your question was, well, why isn't he going on about this? Because that seems like it would be an important, data point to focus on. Yeah,
because apparently we have 5'4" giants from Europe.
Goodness. Okay. Although a majority of the hundreds of burials have been recovered with brain tissue intact, as was the case with the Wendover Pond mummies, the University of Miami alleges that no definitive haplogroup evidence has been obtained so far, which is ridiculous and, if true, argues very badly for the scientific reputation of the university.
What? Okay, so here's something about getting genetic evidence from a bog mummy. It's really hard to prevent contamination in a bog. Because bogs are basically just full of rotting material from all sorts of things. Animals, plants, bacteria, fungi, anything you can think of. It's probably somewhere in a bog, right? So, no, it's actually not that surprising that you might have trouble getting a really good sample out of a bog mummy. And it doesn't reflect poorly on university. And second, the fact that this is an actual university which has an academic reputation to maintain for things like openness and honesty, and that they're like, nah, we can't find any unambiguous haplogroup X, Y chromosome stuff. That means it's just probably not there.
No, it's obviously conspiracy to cover up the truth.
Yeah. No. Okay, so this is a thing that conspiracy theorists do a lot. They're like, but you see, they just don't want you to know. Okay, so now not only do you have to support your contention, which in this case is that these guys have European Y chromosomes, you also now have a new claim that there's a conspiracy to cover up that fact that you also have to demonstrate. Proposing a conspiracy doesn't mean that you get to skip out on providing evidence. It means you now have more things to provide evidence for people to take you seriously. And for $5,
there's no evidence because they are covering it up.
That doesn't help. It just still means now you need to show that they are covering it up, and you need to show the evidence. Carrie Bronson for $5 says he has described yet. Oh, sorry. Has he described what? Yeah, there you go. Has he described yet why he wants the giants to be such? Usually there's a tip of the hand that admits the reason for the motivation.
Oh yeah,
motivated reason. Basically, it's because he was teased for being tall.
Well, it was that, but also he wants there to be giants because it fits in line with his biblical narrative of Nephilim.
Yeah. Which, that's a whole topic that I may or may not ever get into, is the craziness around Nephilim and how seriously should we take the first Enoch and
Well, in fact, the very first couple of sentences in his conclusion to this book says, now that you have reviewed the evidence for a former race of giants, I invite you to consider both their legends and their reality. There are legends of giants in many cultures, such as the Titans of Greece or Goliath in the Bible. In fact, the Bible has several references to giants, known as Rephaim, the Anakim, Zuzim, Sepharim, and Nephilim, as in the following quote from Numbers 13. Quote, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eats up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people we saw it are men of great stature, and we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. End quote. First of all, let me just stop you right there. The report of those scouts in Numbers was in that text demonstrated to be them exaggerating because they were scared to go fight people. And they were like, no, we can't go in and fight him. Everyone's a giant. We're going to get crushed like worms.
Yeah. I actually remember being a kid in church and having an illustration of that story where people were taking the claims of the scouts, like, literally. Yeah. And there's a picture of them carrying a bunch of grapes that's, like, 5 feet tall, and the grapes themselves are, like, a foot across. And I remember as a kid thinking, like, nah, man, that's, like, do you want me to take seriously the idea that there were, like, foot across grapes growing in Canaan?
That is a very common artwork motif, is people carrying, like, these giant, like 3 foot long branches of grapes between them.
Yeah, nope. We do have a few things in chat I want to address. The Sisyphean Bead asks, who is PZ Myers? Because he'll be on Vandalia's channel in about 2 hours. PZ Myers is an evolutionary biologist who runs the blog Fringula. Random Name Generator says, if Baldur's Gate introduces to miniature giant space hamsters, then clearly these are miniature giant red-haired, white-skinned indigenous people. I love that for a few reasons. One, the Baldur's Gate reference is already a deep, like, dive into weird, like, lore about D&D that no one knows. And then now Baldur's Gate is itself kind of a deep dive into D&D lore. So, in the campaign setting Spelljammer, which is basically the campaign setting where you get to jump around between the campaign settings, there are giant space hamsters. That's a common thing, apparently, in the space between the world and the prime material plane. I believe they were created by gnomes, I think as meat. They were actually intended to be eaten. But yeah, that's a whole big deep dive into ridiculously obscure D&D lore, and I love it. But we're going to start wrapping up, I think. What do you think, Vishanti? We got at least one more episode worth of this to go?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit in here about Lewis and Clark. There are a few more things that he goes into. You could actually plausibly do one final episode. It would just be kind of the summation of it. And there's less than 50 pages left of this book. And it would give us a good chance to kind of sum up his arguments and show the extreme lack of what he calls evidence for any claim that he has made.
Nice. Oh, Nebulan says, I'm in a Baldur's Gate game. Should my druid have access to giant hamsters? No, miniature giant hamsters.
Miniature giant hamsters.
Your druid should have... Important. Yeah, your druid has access to miniature giant hamsters. Also, that's why I like to refer to zoos in D&D as druid spellbooks. This is where you go to just pick up new wild shape forms. Because the rule on druids is you can wild shape it to an animal if you've seen it, and it meets the various movement and challenge rating requirements. So just go to a zoo.
Wow.
Find a zoo. Incredible. Check out all the animals. Because now you have a whole bunch of new options. All right, so, Vishanti, what do you have to plug?
At the moment, nothing specific. I'm just wrapping up the final, stages of prep to launch my own channel.
Nice.
And I'm just going to be talking about, pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology. I'm going to discuss a little bit of Hebrew text, and probably on random occasions discuss comic books, because I have a lot of things to say about the current and former state of Doctor Strange comics. So.
Okay. Edgelord420 says, speaking of space animals, there are high IQ space orangutans in Warhammer 40k. Yes, there are. Yes. They are weapons tech specialists, and they actually have rules for abuse on the gaming table, which is just great. There's a lot of stuff that I really like about Warhammer 40k. There's some stuff I don't like about Warhammer 40k, but that's one of the things I do like.
That Warhammer 40k is essentially the universe spawned out of the movie Event Horizon. Like,
yeah, Event Horizon is a prequel to 40k. Is a pretty good fan theory.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. On the 22nd, Tuesday. Oh, sorry. On the 20th, tomorrow, at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, the Seabad Show. Please, Benthoven, if you're still watching, go ahead and link that in chat again. We're going to be premiering our commentary for White Zombie, which, in addition to being fairly racist, or at the very least, fairly culturally insensitive. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Fairly culturally insensitive. Also has a plucked eagle standing in for a vulture.
Oh no, you talked about this
earlier
in the week.
So like it's a bit of a tough watch, but I think we helped. Tuesday.
Animal cruelty is a specific trigger of mine, and
you might want to skip it then.
I may end up skipping that because I mistakenly thought that I could make it through Cannibal Holocaust, and I was wrong because the turtle scene.
So I will say, that kind of treatment of an eagle is not fatal or even long-term really very harmful. Feathers do grow back.
Yeah, they do grow back.
So I would say it's animal cruelty. However, it's not like the permanent mutilation of an animal or anything like that. So it's unnecessarily causing them to, experience pain and shit. It's not okay, but it's also not as bad as it could. Yeah. This is not like in some of the older movies where they literally scared horses off of cliffs for shots.
Yeah.
So,
or the turtle thing from Cannibal Holocaust.
Right.
Which I don't even want to describe.
Look, the movie's called Cannibal Holocaust. You guys get the idea.
Yeah. But it just doesn't even approximate the levels of horrific.
Yeah. So Tuesday, we're going to be doing Jackson with Jackson. Jackson Wheat will be back for his second Jackson with Jackson in a row. Then Thursday, there should be the first episode of Kurt Unwise, about Kurt Wise telling us why you're a coward if you think that pronghorns are giraffoids instead of antelope or deer. Because apparently, you got to pick one of those two, and you can't acknowledge that maybe they're more closely related to giraffes. Not acceptable. Then let's see, Saturday the 26th, I should be having a Leaving Earth Creationism, but my interviewee is in Australia, so it'll be a bit later than normal. I'm thinking it'll probably be sometime around 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 Eastern, and that's to accommodate the fact that, he lives in the future, so.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, I think that's as far ahead as I really want to look, but there are things planned, like the 29th is going to be a Kent with Bent, most likely. And the 31st will probably be the second episode of Kurt Unwise. Also, though, on, I believe, Friday, I want to say. It might be Wednesday. I'm not really sure. But Dr. Dan is going to be having the next episode of the Busting Dismantled series with myself, Gutstick Gibbon, and, of course, Dr. Dan. And then the following week, I believe on Wednesday, Erica will be uploading the final episode of Busting Dismantled on her channel.
Isn't that video like 30 minutes long? But you guys have been taking,
but it's going to be about 6 hours. It's going to be about a 6-hour series total.
Incredible.
Actually, it'll probably come closer to 8 when we're all done. It's that bad.
That's one of my number one problems with just BS claims is it takes so much longer to demonstrate how wrong they are than it is to just spout off the wrongness.
Yeah, it's the BS asymmetry principle. It takes about 4 or more times as long to correct BS as it does to spout it. It's a well-known fact of debunking on the internet. But with that, guys, thank you very much. I want to put in a last plug for the Patreon drive. I am trying to get it to 400, basically to make the channel more or less self-sustaining, because I've been operating the channel for well over a year, well, actually well over 2 years now, at a slight loss, and I would like to turn that into a slight profit so that it is essentially self-sustaining. And yeah, getting me to the 400 per month on Patreon is a really big step towards that. That would most months make it so that the channel is operated at a bit of a profit instead of a bit of a loss, which basically makes it so that I don't really have to scale back any channel activities in the future. And I would really love to do that because I love you guys and I want to be able to keep doing this for the indefinite future. And that would really go a long way towards that. But also, of course, there are other ways to help. But you know what? My end video is going to describe all that stuff. So just watch the end video. Hit like if you haven't. And I hope to see you on Sunday for a premiere. And then on Tuesday for Jackson with Jackson. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching this video, but before you go, I'd like to take a minute to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Ben Tovand, Denny5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Chris Love, Landon Knoll, Sphincter of Doom, and Patrick Dennis. Without the help of the people whose name you see on screen right now, this channel simply wouldn't exist. If you'd like to join the team, there's links in the description to my Patreon, as well as a join button right below this video that will allow you to join on YouTube. Joining gets you access to an exclusive Discord server, early access to my videos, often more than a month in advance, as well as other perks depending on how much you decide to pledge. However, if a monthly or annual pledge isn't for you, there are other ways to support the channel, including a merch store down in the description, and hey, just liking and sharing this video always helps a lot. Thank you very much. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur.